With numbers, it's easy to look at relative value. It makes sense to ask, is 3 greater than 5? It doesn't make sense, though, to ask, is blue greater than red? With colors, names, and lots of other data types, there don't seem to be any relative values. However, equality still exists in these areas. It doesn't make sense to ask, is blue greater than red? But it does make sense to ask, is blue the same as red? In Python, we can sometimes still use the same double equals to compare for equality amongst non-numeric data types. Most often, we'll use this in terms of strings. So here, we create 4 strings on lines 1 through 4, A, B, C, and D. A and B are given the value hello world that we've seen before, and C and D are given just parts of that value. On line 5, we ask, is A the same as B? Well, A was hello world in quotes, a string. B was also hello world in quotes, another string. They have the same text. We can even compare kind of up to down to see that they're the exact same strings. And so, it's true that A equals B. They're not numbers, but we can look at them and recognize that they have the same value. What about on line 6? That compares the value of string A, which says hello world, to the value of string C, which just says hello. Those aren't the same, and so it prints false. Something interesting happens on line 7, though. As we'll see a little bit later, strings can be put together using a plus sign. So C plus D puts C and D together. C was the first half of hello world, D was the second half. And so when we ask, does A, which was the entire string hello world, equal C plus D, the answer is true, because after we put C and D together, it is the same as A. Whether or not the double equals operator works this way with the data types that you're using is dependent on a number of different factors. So before relying on it, you should check to see if the operators behave as intended. The general point here is that for almost any data type, it does make sense to check for equality. We can almost always check if values are equal, even if it doesn't make sense to check if one is greater than or less than the other. It's also worth noting that the greater than and less than operators do work for strings as well, and they operate based on sorting the strings alphabetically. Here on lines 1 through 4, we create the same strings, but on lines 5, 6, and 7, instead of checking for equality, we check to see if one is greater than the other. Greater than in this context means later alphabetically. So the earliest string alphabetically would be said to have the smallest value. So we ask if A is greater than B. A was hello world. B was also hello world. They have the same value, and so neither is greater than or less than the other, and so that's false. On line 6, we check the same thing with the or equal to, and as we saw before, A and B are equal, so this prints true. On line 7, though, we ask, is A greater or equal to D? Again, earlier strings alphabetically are said to have lower values. H comes before W, and so the string hello world would be said to have a lower value than just the string world. And so it's false to say that A is greater than or equal to D. If you play with this, though, you'll find a strange behavior. In Python, all capital letters are sorted before all lowercase letters. So a string beginning with a capital Z would be treated as less than a string beginning with a lowercase a.